happy Thursday. Welcome to the last one of these of the year, the Education Safeguarding Network for June. And thank you. Welcome to you. And I hope you have a good day today. I hope this is useful. I'm going to start increasing speed now, be like a racing commentator or an auctioneer. So we're doing two main sections. It's actually in three: planning for September and security and emergency planning. But as you'll see, we're doing three main sections actually. I'll go on to that in a second. If you want to get your phone out and you want to do a screen grab, a QR code of that, you can open that on your phone now and leave it open and tap in a bit of feedback for us. We'd be really grateful. Sophie just worked on that yesterday, and so it'd be really appreciated, please. Okay, going to move forward. So fast and furious it will be. Off we go. So you'll get all of this information. Don't worry, you'll get the slides, you'll get the the recording and everything. So contact the team. Just a reminder, an update of people. Please do call this number if you want to talk about any safeguarding matters, and one of us will be able to get back to you. Even if I'm in a meeting or somebody else in a meeting, one of us will be there to help. Okay, there's a number of us, and obviously we're all doing lots of different things, but one of us will be there to help. So part one, headlines and updates. So new out this week from the partnership is the translation survey. If you've got time to do that, that would be brilliant. That is to find out how people are coping and managing to get translation done in schools and settings, and to know what you're using. Is it working? What else do you need? And then for them to try and resolve that and come back with some solutions. So move on from that one. The escalation policy was literally updated yesterday, and so what you've got there is basically why they're updating it and what we've learned so far, and these are all the links to the different pages so that you don't have to have all of these individual documents. Always use the link rather than the downloading the document and rely on that just in case they change. Some more details on there about what you can do. Read the policy and the briefing, encourage early resolution, use the new form, embed the policy and the survey and the culture. And if you've got any questions, Caroline can help you. So moving on, pupil wellbeing, mental health and self-harm. There have been, and I may have spoken about this before, kind of a pattern, a sort of outbreak of self-harm incidents across Warwickshire in two main areas. So just being aware of that, being looking out for any signs of self-harm, any unusual behaviour, being vigilant as you always are. There's a letter that I've done in conjunction with Public Health, and then that one will be attached. And that letter has a section on, as if it's coming from you, a section that says, "Dear staff, I know you've all been working hard, blah, 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 think about your mental health, etc." And you can edit that as you want. There's a section that says, "Dear children," and you can edit that how you want to for the children, and it gives ideas about how to stay safe with your mental health and self-harm over the summer. And then the third part is for parents, telling them what avenues they've got as well if they're worried about their child. So that stuff there. And then there's a useful leaflet which I'll show again later. So try and use that and get them in your newsletters before the end of term if you can. It would really help, and we'll know, the Public Health and I and the RISE and other team members will know that at least there's some information out there. They are really trying to open up the services for emergency mental health. Okay, Tranquility Group is related to domestic abuse, so they're opening a group in the south of the county. There's already one in the north, so that may be useful for you to share with parents. There's a Day of Memory in July, 14th of July, which is about domestic abuse that then turns into honour-based violence, and we do have experience of these situations in Warwickshire, both against men and women, in terms of domestic homicide, where things start as domestic violence but end up as a homicide, and there is a cultural aspect to that death. So there's a video there, and if I think it's something you should all be aware of, and again, just having your senses heightened. Also this month, having your senses heightened to the subject of pride awareness. So there's lots of useful things there, and the main messages are: think about the language you use, listening without judgment, challenging discrimination, learning more, offering support. And there's a lot of data from Papyrus here that tells you scary figures about how many young people who identify as LGBTQ plus or have gender dysphoria that end up sadly killing themselves or being bullied, as we know in Brianna Gay was bullied and killed for being transgender. So awareness of that this month, and opening up the door for those people in your school or setting that want to talk about it, just letting them know that you're aware of it. Okay, time for young people. You may or may not be aware of this. Children's Society opportunities for support, counselling, and lots of other things which you may not have seen before. So something to have a look at, and we'll send you these as a screen grab, I think, that you can put on websites and stuff. And there's also a leaflet you can print out as well if you want to. So put those in your newsletter as well. Document summer reading, some nice, sunbed reading here, the effective use of AI in education, how to stay safe. It's not too bad, actually. Got some video clips, so worth a look. Okay, just published, you know, again, maybe not summer reading, but the National Audit on Group-Based Child Sexual Exploitation and Abuse, and that's the Rotherham and other types of gang grooming. So that report is out as well. You've been probably aware of the Children's Wellbeing Bill, but that could have implications if it's completed. This one, if it's reading, it's a cliffhanger. It's still to be continued. So we don't know. We know it's going to have an impact on breakfast clubs and school uniform being limited to the branded items. A whole lot of other stuff about EHE and many other things. So we just don't know at the moment, and maybe the KCSIE will come when that's completed. We don't quite know, but that one to know about. Not necessarily a safeguarding, but your PE premium's been going to continue. So just think about how you're spending that, and are you making a difference to young people's well-being? Some information there for you to look at. Bullying, a new video from the Anti-Bullying Alliance to be used as and when you want to. Feel free. Sarah Fitzgerald, who used to work for Warwickshire, has two conferences coming up on the 8th of July and the 9th of July. They are in either Stafford or Birmingham, unfortunately, are face-to-face, but they're free. And so if you are able to get somebody out to them, might be well worth going. So have a look at that one. Awareness of CGL, Change, Grow, Live. Okay, they're also known as Evolve. They were on Heads Briefing the other day, and one of the things most recently that has caught my attention is that I know they've been around a while. The use of gummies, which can look incredibly like Haribo's and things like that. There are also drinks as well with THC, and these have got cannabinoids in them. So just being aware of that. I think when you're thinking about booking speakers and things like that, you should really consider. We used to have the police come in and bring the drugs and do the drugs talk with your sixes and things. I think this is probably the way forward. If you're thinking about a theme week or something for transition for next year, definitely try and bring them in and look at medicines, look at drugs, vaping, all of those things as part of your what would have been healthy schools. Managing allegations, so quite useful from ECP. There's a document. If you're on LinkedIn and stuff, you can find loads of these things. So what I've done basically is gone through loads of different places to find information for you. This is about a short guide to managing allegations. There's the latest news from Kooth. There's Andrew Hall, who's some people subscribe to. So there's a poster he's got, which is good. So feel free to use that. We'll send you a link to it, but it will be updated once KCSIE is updated. But I'm thinking of you in your posters. He does a question of the week here as well, which is like it's like an Ofsted question. So how do we make sure everyone, including supply staff and volunteers, know what to do if they have a safeguarding concern? Drop it into a staff meeting or something similar. Okay, moving on to part 2, KCSIE and planning for September. What? No, KCSIE, where is it? Why isn't it here? So we don't know, basically, but there's obviously a lot of bills going through with a new government, and they're all trying to jockey for position about when these are going to all come into action. They've got to go through Parliament before recess. And so the mention of sexual abuse, that's been published, crime and policing bill. There's a lot of stuff about exploitation and weapons and knife crime. There's a lot of stuff about VORG and about reducing the amount of crime against women and girls. Schools wellbeing bill I've just mentioned. they've been sitting on the RSE legislation for a long time, and then a lot of this section here is what we've already done in Warwickshire, the Pathfinder, rolling that out across the rest of the country. So that's probably why there's a delay. There's lots of sections that you could look at about what might be going on there. I'm not going to go through them all in detail. There just isn't time, but you can read the headlines if you want to. If you can pop your mics on mute, that would be really great. Thank you. So what could happen with KCSIE? Well, they could attempt to publish something, not decide, and then leave us all hanging around not knowing what to do, and then published it later in the academic year. They could have a holding strategy and say, we'll do a couple of little tweaks and we'll get it out there. But again, we don't know when this is going to happen. What will probably happen? Probably some kind of holding strategy, but we don't know when they're going to tell us. It could be the last day of term. We really don't know. So they're probably going to, we are going to, as an authority, plan to do this. Okay, prep all the training slides for September as we would, very similar to last year, and ask you to do what you did last year, following pretty much the same content with maybe one or two tweaks. And again, some of these videos and things I'm including today, you can improvise a bit and you can add your own video clips on different things. You could do it on prevent, you can do it on lots of stuff. We'll have a holding strategy to say keep the policies the same. Just bear in mind that the safer recruitment's been updated, so you may want to take the opportunity to use that one. We'll ask you to redate your documents that you've got on your websites and get them signed off by governors, and do a sort of a riding type of slip that just says we have not had KCSIE, so therefore the policies have been updated as to show that we've read them and used it for training. However, we are waiting for KCSIE to be updated, and we'll change these documents and get them signed off accordingly. Okay, so we don't know. They might do them September, they might do them December. You need to think about a training day, maybe January, maybe Easter. They might just go, you know what, we'll leave it till next year and do it properly and do a massive change next year. We really don't know. I suppose the ideal thing in a way would be to wait until April next year and have it all out in the open, all finalised, and then we'd all know what we're doing. But we will update everything on the website so you know what's going on. That's where the policies will be. Some other stuff where you can keep an eye out for what's going on there is following. You can subscribe and join this company, Safeguarding Network, and they'll give you updates as well. So will Andrew Hall. Training day narrated slides, as I've said, you've got the slides there. You've got the workbook as well if you haven't used it before, and the slides and the workbook link together. Okay, so slide number 30 there with some reading notes. So if you're reading it out manually and you want to do it that way, that ties in with slide 30 on the slide deck. And also, let me just, sorry, one other thing I was going to say about that. So those are all there and they are narrated. So you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. If you don't feel confident, you can just let that do the work and it will read it all out to you. So code of conduct has to be updated when KCSIE is updated, so that won't change significantly, but just refresh them and still go through what they are with your staff. You'll have new members of staff. You need to do that induction anyway. You need to refresh people's memory anyway. And there's you've also got that short document about code of conduct and staff concerns. Safer recruitment, that's been updated. Okay, so you just need to do a few updates, look about what's specific to your school, and then which bits have been updated on safer recruitment. Please do, look carefully at that, update your safer recruitment training, think about the online checks and things that you have to do, and there's some reminders here, so please do use it. It's on the website. The letter of assurance, so when you've got members from Warwickshire coming into your school to support, we will be sending them out the updated letter signed off by the directors. So those will come with people from September. They'll be being distributed over the summer. Wellbeing and supervision. Okay, pupil wellbeing is a new trend, or a relatively new trend, which is, working around the problems of obtaining harmful substances by actually using things that are freely available, aerosols. It's called chroming or dusting, using gases, lighter fuel, anything that's got like a solvent basically to get high. So just being aware of that, chemical-based products, markers, all of those types of things that young people are improvising with, if they can't get other things that they want to get, because every time we identify a new thing, they find solutions of how to get around it and find a different way. So with tips for wellness for young people there from mental health team. Uh, We've mentioned self-harm already, so there's documents there coming out on mental health and self-harm. I've mentioned the letters to you already. This is the one slide I've realised I didn't finish in time for today, and I keep seeing in the hot weather, lots of things about people open water swimming. So I am going to finish these off before I send the slides off. There's stuff on self-harm awareness already in the slides. We'll mention stranger awareness, and I'll drop in some links for railway safety, construction safety, and just basically mention all those different things in your local environment. You may have canals, you may have rivers, you may have trains. Just make everybody aware how to stay safe in your local environment over the summer. Okay, staff well-being, there's a video here and there's some guidance on how to stay mentally well yourself, and your staff to stay well, even over the summer. People are winding down, but that doesn't mean they won't feel distressed or traumatized by different things. I'm not going to play the video. There's a sheet here that's really useful from Educational Support and Anna Freud, which we'll send out to you. There's also a little exercise you can do for well-being and self-care should you want to. And then think about September, and had KCSIE come out, we think that supervision will be part of it. We do think it will come in at some point, and it's very needed. Lifespace and other companies offer supervision. Whatever you choose, please do try and think about introducing supervision, because it will probably become compulsory anyway, but it's for your own well-being. Okay, reviewing your safeguarding audit and your action plan. You did the audit in March, so you wrote an action plan here like this about some of the questions you felt less confident as a school, or maybe areas that you need to work on this year. So you need to go back to that and have a look and see what you're planning to do in the autumn, in the spring and in the summer before you do your next audit, to show to governors, to Ofsted, to yourself, that you're filling in the gaps where your knowledge isn't as strong or your staff knowledge isn't as strong. Okay, so look at your safeguarding curriculum. This we publish every year is the themes throughout the year. I've shared already a thematic calendar from elsewhere, which was really good. So think about when you're doing what subject, how they link in with all of the resources that are around. All of these have links, Bullying Alliance, so they're all there for you. Think about your assemblies and how those fit in, your sort of charity days when you're fundraising, and make those links with the curriculum. PSHE and everything else. Book your visits and your visitors. Okay, remember Loudmouth offer very good deals, and they do a marvelous job reaching some of the subjects other people cannot reach, to be honest. So it's very difficult to talk about some subjects like exploitation and things like that, whereas they can start that conversation off and open up. They also do get a lot of referrals from young people that wouldn't normally also refer within their visits. Youth service, youth justice service, no, wrong, youth service, that's correct, yes. Have just updated their slides, and so they are offering 2 hours a week to work with school and young people, but you have to get on the waiting list. So there's lots of different sessions they can do. So please look up and find out what you are missing out on if you're not using them, and what they can do. They can do all sorts of different things, whether it's youth clubs, projects, working in school, the whole lot, assemblies, you name it. So have a look. Reminder about working together. Okay, we're talking about KCSIE a lot, but think about working together as well. It was only a couple of years ago, and a lot of those things are still really important in terms of Ofsted and in terms about how we should work together. Child death reviews, working together as teams, multi-agencies, embedding all the stuff we've been doing with Pathfinder, resolving any hiccups and challenges along the way. That is, not the easiest document. There's some more highlighted bits here to remind you and your staff, and things like, you should be aware of children that may benefit from early help, early support in Warwickshire, but it's written into into law there that you should be considering early help for those most vulnerable children. Okay, I know it's not law that you have to do it, but you should be thinking about it, is what it says. And then other areas like protecting online, LGBT. Uh, really accessible version of this has come out, which is really helpful for children, really, but actually be great for staff and parents as well. And things about good practice from a child's point of view. So, noticing what they're doing, understanding, trusting them, listening, respecting them. Really good things that you could use as posters. You could print it out. A really nice document, which is really understandable by all and sort of comes down to the fundamentals of what safeguarding is about. I think that's great. Check your attendance policy and you're doing all of that stuff that Nikki Scott Moylan needs you to do. You're filling in your forms and returns, and make sure your policy, are you implementing all of those steps of your attendance that you should be? Maybe there's an opportunity to stop and reflect and see how your attendance links in with your safeguarding. Where safeguarding is outstanding, it always demonstrates a really good link with attendance. And the opposite applies as well. Operation Encompass, you probably know what that is. So Operation Encompass, domestic abuse out of school, you get notified when it happens by the police. You have to register. What we do now is all of these ones: Encompass for domestic abuse, missing from home. Operation Guarding is the pornography, where children create pornographic images based on other photos and they adapt them. So you get notifications for all of those, but you only have to fill in one form like this, really simple. And if you've got people moving on and people changing roles, they need to have that. Otherwise, you will stop getting the notifications. Okay, so you send it to the police. You don't send it to us. That's the deal. They send it there. They'll send you the form out. Transitions, thinking about who's going to struggle with transitions. Hopefully you're already doing that. Thinking about who hasn't got the parental support, who's anxious, and all the rest of that. Transition, thinking a reminder that you've got 5 school days to pass on the information. Okay, checking the gaps. Has somebody turned up? Has somebody gone somewhere else? Where did they go? If you were receiving a child and they don't show up, what's your duties? What do you have to do? Make sure you sign off your records that are being transferred. Check, you don't assume that everything's come through. Check that you've received all the information and it works, electronic or paper wise. And these are the census days as well for this year. So thinking about free school meals, etc., anything else you need to get done, whether it's send, finances and things to get on that census for October. Websites and signage. Time to update the website, time to update the signage in school, the posters and so on. Who's the DSL? Who can you talk to in this school? Remember to update those. Get your photographs of people as soon as you can so you can update your signage. This is the one about knife crime. I was in a meeting the other day and people said, I've never seen that, never heard of that. And I've been sharing this quite a lot. So, please do get those onto your parent notice boards, onto your newsletters, onto your website, so that parents can report knife crime without having to make formal phone the police. They can do it anonymously. So it's a really good thing and it's working. Worried about a child. We've been asked about some of our posters. So these are being updated where the logos are being changed and the wording such as front door is changed to Family Connect, etc. We've got these other posters as well, things on vaping and various other things. And there's more posters on the way. Some of those Andrew Hall ones and things like that you can use. So we're talking about how we can update, how many posters we're going to update every year. Record keeping systems. So do you use CPOMs? If so, make sure you do your updates, remove the children, archive the children that are moving on at the right time. Make sure you import all those records and check they've all arrived. I don't know if I was going to say as well that you can do a staff safe where you use your yellow forms and your reporting staff concerns as well. If you want to expand that, I think this is the safeguard as my concern. So I'm talking about the wrong one. This is the my concern one. They both do things for monitoring staff and staff concerns. And that one is the CPOMS version. Student voice, an opportunity to update and use that. Many schools use it for monitoring the well-being of children, where the children can send in notifications that they're worried about something. Green forms, yellow forms. I know what you're going to think. Oh no, they're changing them again. Well, we are, but only because the names of front door changing and the logos and so on. So out with the old and in with the new, please. If you're using green and yellow forms, get those from the website. There's the link. It literally just throw them in the bin, recycle them, and print off some new ones if that's what you're doing. But I'd really encourage people now to be moving over to electronic systems. We do find that where we have errors and problems of transfer, the police are trying to track down recently, have tracked down a young person, and the paperwork. Some of the paperwork from one school was electronic, no problem. It got to its destination. Some of it was on paper, and it was very difficult to track it down. We did, but it was very difficult. Uh, Escalation process I've mentioned, so that was a slide that I'd left in. Emergency contacts. Sophie will want me to say this and get your attention on this one. Okay, lots of people, over 100, have done it already. Fill in the form, fill in the Microsoft form here, and tell us who's who over the summer, who we can talk to if there's an emergency safeguarding concern. We don't call you unless we need to, and we don't share the information with people we don't need to either. So be reassured, we won't be sending you calling you for silly things. You know from experience that we only do it when we have to, for a strategy meeting or something similar. Book your training, book ahead, plan ahead, get those places booked because they do fill up. And they've got the old one that takes you up to the summer here, and then next year's program, which is from September onwards. There's still some places left on. There's another slide here. I couldn't take them all out, but there's the odd place left in July. He says looking for one, 1st to the 7th there. There's one or two others, but there are still some available. Okay, part three. We're on to part three, and we're nearly halfway through. I think we'll be okay. So take a breath. I'm going to take a sip of tea for one moment. Have a think about Martin's Law. I'll put on. Actually, I'll have a sip of tea when I put the video on. That would be a good idea. So prevent. You know about prevent. Obviously, you can talk to Jeff and do your prevent training, do your prevent risk assessment. Making sure young people feel safe is what it's all about in terms of safeguarding and prevent is being safe, and avoiding, avoiding dangers of radicalization. Jeff's details are here. The training thing is there. We've got training in November and in January, so you can plan ahead. We can also do bespoke training for you. Sophie can help with that in the most part, and then Jeff can book things direct as well. He's always there to help you with your risk assessment as well. Prevent related content available in certain parts of the county from our regional prevent person, the equivalent of Jeff from the Midlands, can do. If your school is in these areas, you may be open to extreme right-wing threat if you're in that particular postcode. So you can get a bespoke training session from this person for a staff meeting or a training day. So make direct contact with Sherry if you're interested in that. Risk assessment, I've said, Jeff would say, do your best, make it practical, keep it simple, and just update it in line with the current threats. And obviously, the world changes every day in terms of the threat level. You never know what today is going to bring. As far as I know, the threat level hasn't changed this week or the last couple of weeks. Hopefully, things are calming down in the Middle East a little bit. So model outline, county risks, West Midlands risks, risk to online safety, thinking about, if your school lets people come in the community groups and use your computers, obviously there's a greater risk. If you've got lettings, who's using the school, what are they using it for, thinking about all of those things. And the risk assessment templates are there as well. And just to mention, if you have a worry about strange or unusual activity in your local area, you can always use an Intel Protect form, which is a form which is anonymous, and you say, I've noticed this car sitting in with a driver every day at this time, the registration number is this, we're by a school and we feel this is a bit uncomfortable, could somebody just look into it, please? That type of thing, obviously with a bit more detail, but you can do that anonymously, and people in their community safety areas of the county will look at those with the police and will decide whether there's a risk, whether to investigate, and so on. Okay, so the different parts of keeping the country safe. are pursue stopping terrorist attacks, where you see the things on the news where they're identifying intelligence and chatter on the internet, protecting to secure against attack. So what are we doing in town centres, having the big bollards to stop vans driving down the high street? Okay, preparing, mitigating the effect. So, what can you put in place in your setting that reduce the risk? So you might have locks on the front doors, security glass windows, those types of preparation. And then prevent is when somebody is becoming radicalized, what to do next. So those are the parts, the 4 Ps you may have only ever heard of prevent before, but actually there's 3 more. Okay, local national priorities, substantial at the moment, so about halfway. We know that the main risk is probably not from, there are risks from Islamic fundamentalism, but there are also risks from the right-wing terror. What we're saying in the most part, actually, at the moment is individuals are posing one of the biggest risks at the moment, extreme individuals that don't actually subscribe to any particular dogma or group. So there's some details there from MI5 chief, and these are symbols used in Warwickshire parks which did demonstrate that extremism exists. So obviously you can see for yourself the types of things that are there, and that's showing again right-wing extremism in some of our parks. So look out for, Jeff will always say, look for the things on the lampposts, look at the graffiti, that type of thing, and then report that to by a safe in Warwickshire or using an Intel Protect form. That there are ways to report that. Homemade, extremism exists in Leamington, where this man used a 3D printer to make a gun. So, there are a lot of examples now in the training of individual white males that are, developing extremism. We talked about incel in the last session and why some people are developing a threat based on misogyny. Okay, risk of attack anywhere, anytime, locations, football, urban places, local centres, schools and places of worship, using blunt force weapons as well. Knives, machetes are very common, and they are trying to be taken off sale. So the likelihood is low. When they say on Crime Watch, sleep well, it happens, but it's, the likelihood is still low. Be prepared, don't be alarmed. Okay, so Martin's Law, where's it come from? So a lot of people are probably thinking about holiday clubs over the summer, and the Southport incident where the young girls were attacked as they were doing a dance class, and nobody expected that type of situation to happen. And you would think that this is all about that. So I think it actually started before then. They started with the Manchester Arena bombing, where 22 people were killed at the Ariana Grande concert. And it wasn't so much about the setup of the doors and the security, the fact that nobody worked together. And so the police or the ambulance people stopped the ambulance people, the medics getting in because they thought there was a bomb threat. Therefore, the people that were already injured didn't get the attention they needed in time. The key thing about an emergency is the human welfare, protecting human welfare. It puts at risk human welfare, the environment, so a building, a place, and the security of the United Kingdom and its freedom. Those are the things that are at risk of an emergency. A critical incident could be an emergency, but it's defined as an unexpected incident, a sequence of events which causes harm or trauma in the setting, and it overwhelms your day-to-day coping mechanisms of the establishment, something which you just could not expect to happen, and for which the members of staff are unprepared and will really struggle. So the building falls down, a flood happens, a fire happens, something which is unpredictable. So it's very difficult to manage. Just go with a normal minor adjustment to your daily routine, basically. Terrorism Protection Act is what it's known. Protection of premises. It's called Martin's Law. And basically, the important information here is the standard tier is if you, on your busiest day of the year, have 200 or more individuals on your site, you are standard tier, and that applies to you and your school or your setting. If you have 800 more or more on any given day, bonfire night celebration, summer fair, Christmas pantomime, whatever, then that applies to you. It only has to be one day, and that you are in that tier, and there's slightly different obligations, but all of the information is here. Smaller settings with less than 200 people on any one time on one day are exempt. However, you have to be encouraged to adopt best practice. And I'm sure if anything were to happen and you weren't adopting best practice, it wouldn't be great. So, there's nothing to say that just because you've got less than 200 people, a bad thing won't happen. It could indeed happen. And it's just as important that you're prepared in the same way. But just you'll see in a video in a minute, it's got to be proportionate. So you've heard of Martin's Law now. This is Martin's mum. Okay. And she will tell you about why they've introduced Martin's Law. Trigger warning. It's not especially upsetting, but obviously it's a very sensitive subject. So I'll have a cup of tea, sip of tea while you watch. Okay, so I think one of the things to pick up on there is people seeing security at the door, and that is a key message, really. It's very simple, but a key one. And make the comparison to your homes and burglary, really. If your street has houses which have got cameras, which has got ring doorbells, which has got, signs on the door, CCTV, lock door, window locks, for example, windows closed, secure gates, etc., etc. They will walk past your house in most times and walk to another house that doesn't have the security set up. So when you look like you are taking precautions and you're well geared up for these situations, it is less likely that the attack will happen to you and your setting. In the same way with your school or your setting, if you are set up, you've got visible deterrents, visible staff, high vis jackets, alarms, and all those other things, and you tell people that you take security as safely as you take safeguarding, people will go the other way, hopefully, and will not target your setting because they will pick an easier target. So it's as simple as that. Just think about those deterrents that you have. Let's move on. So there's loads of documents. This is the actual document, protective security. there's templates in here. It's not terrible. It's okay, and obviously you've got some time. You've got 2 years to implement it, but that doesn't mean leave it for 2 years. You've got this document, which some of you may have seen, which is the Warwickshire, Solihull, and Coventry package, which is about kind of a large scale emergencies. So, plane crashes or something that happened to Heathrow when the electricity went off and it impacted on infrastructure, things like that. It does impact on you, and it obviously depends on what happens. But there's some appropriate stuff there, which I'll show you in a minute. These are the two main things that you should be giving to every member of staff, every volunteer, just the fact sheet and the NACSO Martin's Law fact sheet as well. It's everybody should be reading that, perhaps, not wait till September, but ask people to read it as part of their CPD. And there's stuff there for early years as well. We've done all of this with early years already, and childminders. So, they take it seriously too. Supporting documents, we've said all of that. This is what's in there. So that's some different information there. One other thing I'm going to draw your attention to here, I've got my little laser pointer here. I'm not going to do my laser pointer. Okay. Oh, I don't know if that's going to come off afterwards. I hope it does. There you go. Educational visits are actually one of the risky things. I know that's obvious, but actually, if you're taking your children, you might be taking them off to Drayton Manor or to a big theme park or to London or somewhere like that. Those are actually potential targets. And I know it's another thing to think about, but actually talk to your staff, talk to your volunteers about what one of those risk factors that you have to plan for is, what would you do if something dramatic happened? If there was a gunfire, if there was a shout, a threat, where would they go? Where would they assemble? Is there a muster point? When you came through the gate, did you say, if anything goes wrong, we'll all meet here? It's as simple as that. Or if there's an attack, keep yourself safe and wait for an alert, something along those lines. But you do need to be thinking about those things. You need to be thinking about all sorts of eventualities, like your coach crashing. These things happen, and not just as simple as where the toilets are and what the weather is. You do need to think about those things. I've been on a coach, on a residential, when the coach has actually come off the road and it's created a emergency police response. So these things do happen. You do need contingency plans. There's loads of other stuff here and loads of little nice things you could put on the wall, and advice and simple things to have by the phone in the office. So look at those, please. Incidents in school settings. So these are the types of things that could happen. If we had more time, I'd ask you to put them in the chat. But flooding, heat waves, extreme heat could be an emergency scenario for some schools. Flooding, it's quite possible and does happen. Fire, snow, loss of utilities. So if you lose your gas, if you lose your electricity, if you lose your water, how long could you carry on for? What do you do? Where are the phone numbers? Where's that information? Bomb threats we'll talk about. Intruders on site or incidents on a visit we've mentioned there. So think about the intruder one. That's an important one to do perhaps for September. Where might they come in from? What would we do? Who would close the doors? Where would we go? Collapses in buildings. There's also trees as well. We've seen that after prolonged rain, sometimes trees can be unsafe. So preventing those types of things, planning for them, getting them checked. This one, the intruder and violent parents. We all probably know a parent or a visitor that's turned quite, aggressive and angry, and sometimes we need to plan for those things. So there are different ways you can do that, and having a strategy, whether it's a meeting room outside the actual main building, or some people have meeting rooms, inside the foyer or off from the foyer, so they're not coming inside the main building. Vehicle crashes. Early years, people talked about crashes in the vicinity of schools and nurseries, which stopped the collection of children. We've also got absconding. We have lots of conversations about split families where one parent threatens to take the child away from school. We talk about what paperwork they've got, who's got parental consent. Protests can happen, and they do happen in local areas, and we saw that the hotels and things like that in Tamworth and other places. And obviously emergencies such as a member of staff or a visitor having a medical emergency is another type of thing that can happen. Really clear planning, roles and responsibilities. What would you do? Contacts, who to tell, have these ready, have your communication plan ready, make sure your child receives the education they need. So you need to plan that they can carry on as normally as possible. What can you do? Discuss safety and the risks. And I need to change this slide with adults first, but obviously at the right time, talk to children about it. You need to practice evacuating, which is going out and like a fire drill. And you need to practice invacuating, which is the opposite, which is a lockdown. Okay, it's another word for lockdown. Review your emergency procedures and add to them. Share regular information with parents. So one of the important things is to tell parents that you have a plan if there was ever an emergency, and reassure them that you know what you're doing, that it's all organized. Don't worry. Okay. You see it on the news, emergency situations. You don't want to be panicking and thinking, what shall I do? You need to have a plan ready to go. Make sure staff are aware of their role in a lockdown. Okay. Think about your phone systems. So is it going to be calls out only, not having any calls coming in? What's happening there with texting parents? What's your system in school? How do you update them and tell them what's going on? How often are you going to update them? Protecting the perimeter of the school where that is feasible, either by fencing and gates, but also then in a certain type of emergency where you've got somebody running away, or you may need to have somebody protecting the gate. Who is that lucky person when you draw the straw that says you're the one on the gate? You might have to have the person on the gate actually because there's been a leak, a fire, a gas leak, and so you've got to stop parents coming onto your site for collection at home time, and they might need a high-vis jacket and be directing them to the park over the road where the classes will be brought out one at a time. It's that type of scenario. Lots of different scenarios, and you need to go through. I'd encourage you to do some kind of mind mapping about what could happen. Okay. And social media, how do you manage that? Collecting the children. Oh, sorry, racing through. We've not got long left, got 10 minutes, but we'll get there. Okay, 15 minutes. What can you do? I would personally start as a fire drill and get your fire drill nailed. Get that really clear so there's no nonsense and everybody's got that in their head. Okay. And then what would be different from a fire drill in a lockdown, and use it as an opportunity in a training day to say, ask the staff, what would you do? What do you think we should do? And open it up, because you'll engage them in the process then rather than just telling them. Okay. So what would be different? What would be the same? It depends what it was. So if it was an intruder, how would that be different from a fire drill? If it was if it was a bomb threat, how would that be different to a fire drill? Would be the same? What would be different? And just this one question, I need to put it somewhere, is thinking about phones. Phones are brilliant in an emergency and you can phone people and phone each other. But if it was a lockdown, your phone ringing about your person when there's somebody with a machete would not be ideal. So how would you manage that? Training staff on the content. You've got to do it. Exercising, going through the exercise and practicing needs to be tested in a safe environment. Do a walkthrough. Have fun. I do it a bit lightheartedly to begin with. Ring a bell, blow a kazoo, do something that's just saying, but we don't know what our signal is. Let's, choose one silly one for now. And I'm going to do that. And I want you all to think, what am I going to do? And let's just walk around and see what everybody did and whether that worked or didn't work. Then you move on to the one, well, this is what you should be doing. I'm going to do it again this time. This time I want you to walk through. Don't panic. Go to where you're meant to be. Your muster points, your safe places, your lockdown place position. Did you close the doors? Did you close the windows? Did you put something up against the door? Did you go under the tables? And make a game of it. Score people. Well done, this class. Well done, that class. And then have scenarios and run through those. I know it's a lot, but just do a bit at a time and keep them fresh in the memory so that it's not seen as such a big deal. One school I know with younger children did something called a wild pig alert. And basically they did a sort of pretend pig, or it could be an animal, a stuffed toy. And, a wild animal, let's say, escapes from the zoo. We saw bears escaping from the zoo this week, stealing honey. I don't know if you saw that, but you could have a creature that you say, we have to prepare sometimes that unpredictable things happen. We can't always control it. So imagine a creature escaped from somebody's house. They've got a pet lion in their house and it came onto the school. What would we do? And so you could go, wild lion alert or wild pig alert, whatever you want to do to make it a little bit of fun, but at the end, obviously take away the serious things as well about locking the door, getting inside the classroom, being quiet, being under the table, that kind of thing. Okay, there's loads of guidance. Some of the things you've got to start somewhere. I know it sounds like a lot. I know that the parent of Martin said, we don't want this to overwhelm you, but you just have to start and chip away. A security lead is the name that we're encouraging you to use. It does sometimes mention a designated person in the documents, but I wouldn't do that. Call them a security lead. It can be the head, deputy, SLT. It could be anybody, but they need to be the person that's on site, like a fire marshal. You don't want them to be at home on the day, or you need a deputy or somebody that takes that role on the day. They also need to be the person that plans all of this as well. Basic emergency plans about what you do in a lockdown or an evacuation. Uh, have a grab and go bag which contains items needed in an emergency. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Raise staff awareness. Start talking about the subject. Establish clear communication protocols about who will tell people what's going on in an emergency. What will the bells sound like? What will we do? So just start to think about those things, just do a chunk at a time. Okay. Bomb threats. Okay, in itself, this is quite a quite specific one. We do have periods of time where lots of schools get bomb threats. It happens every so many years. Okay, a bomb threat is where an individual place or an article communicates information with the intention of inducing a person to believe that something is likely to explode or ignite, causing harm within an education setting. That's the definition. And so that could be something's planted in the school which has already been planned to go off, and the phone call is to tell you it's going to happen, and it's either telling you it's going to happen and they want something like money, or it's telling you it's going to happen so you all evacuate, or there could be lots of different motives, and it all depends on what is current at that time. You have to take them seriously. Sometimes people get them before school. We have had schools, schools in sort of areas which cross over different authorities. A few years ago, we had, emails coming into school saying there's a bomb in your school. Head teachers had no choice but to close the school. If it was credible, they could do the checks as best they could in the time they'd got. But if they weren't sure at the certain time of day, they may have to close the school to that day until they've made sure it's safe. If it's halfway through the day, you'll have to deal with it halfway through the day. But usually, if it's a phone call, it'll be a phone call or an email that you come into first thing in the morning. So those are the type of scenarios. And just click on this again. 1 second, sorry. There we go. Contain accurate, precise information well in advance, actual attack, rare occurrences. They're normally hoaxes, but you can't assume that it's a hoax every time. Terrorists, others may hoax bomb calls to intimidate the public and draw attention to a cause. So in the way that protesters on motorways and things about stop oil, they may cause disruption to get a message, a political message across. So this could be the reason why people are doing it. The checklist: keep a document in one or more places where you can grab it in seconds by any member of staff receiving the bomb threat. So usually in the office. What to do: remain calm, record the conversation if you can, signal to a colleague. So, if you're in an office and there's two people, you might have something you hold up. You might go, hello, can you phone the 999 police or something? Maybe on the clipboard you have by the phone, you say, please phone 999 and alert the security lead, and try and listen to the conversation, write down everything you can, listen for any background information, and dial 1471 afterwards, and have all this on a clipboard next to the main switchboard. Okay, 4 C's: confirm, clear, control, communicate. Confirm whether or not it's suspicious. So like they do on the trains, if you see an unattended bag, be curious, find out what it is. Obviously, choose, depending on what the situation is, decide what to do. Consider with partners, so just common sense really. Clear the area if you are worried about it and you think it's significant. Clear the immediate area, whatever it might be, and judge sensibly whether it's a significant risk. Obviously, if you're in New Street Station and you see a bag, It's different to if you're on the playground, you see a bag and the whistle's just gone in. The whistle's just gone for going in time. It's probably not a bomb, but just use some intelligence and common sense. Control the area. So do you need to close the gates off to the public? Do you need to get everybody inside? Do you need to get everybody outside? Control the perimeter. And then I think there's some more here. Communicate what's going on. Tell people, managers and so on, police if you need to, about what's going on. And you want to consider talking to parents to look out for suspicious activity. If you've got a bit of a pattern of things, encouraging parents to be vigilant, using social media for good things is a good idea. But obviously there's a risk with that one as well. And then the culture, just like safeguarding culture, you need to be alert, you need to be aware of things. And then there's a hot protocol which tells you about if something's suspicious or not. Clipboards, things to write things down there. So identify the facts that you know and write them down. Have them ready. Don't be rummaging in the drawer. What goes in your grab kit? Okay, so might have a high vis fluorescent bag on the back of the door, paper, water, pencils. You don't know how long you're going to be locked down for. If you've got SEND learners, you might have to have a specific bag. If you've got a resource provision that might have some things that will keep those young people as calm as possible, maybe fidget toys, things like that, sensory toys. In asthma inhalers, so if you've got asthma, children with asthma, they need to have that inhaler with them. That's best practice. Or EpiPens. So having those bags, emergency bags, at realistic places, depending on the layout of your building. Okay, you can only do your best. Okay, so think about what the plans are. Not going to go into too much detail there, but we used to have a grab bag for fires as well, and we had a laptop which had, was charged. We had a mobile phone in there as well with a charger. We knew what we were going to grab in an emergency. If you had the old-fashioned signing in book, you need all your visitors' names, or you need an electronic system. So thinking about what's practical, what you can do, and also then having a place where you go to for a fire drill, evacuation to the field. Then where's your next decamp place? Is it the local church, the community centre? Have you arranged with them? We used to have an arrangement with our local church. We had their Wi-Fi password. We had access. We had somebody who let us in. There were a number of people who were key holders. They knew we'd got a reciprocal agreement to go to that church, and we could dismiss children from the church if we had to close the school. So have you got a grab bag? Where are you going to keep it? Who's going to use it? What do you need in it? A map of the site so somebody can show the fire brigade or whoever where things are, where the utilities are, where the exit points are, what you've got for comms, emergency templates, registers and contact lists. Loads of stuff here that you can use. Just mention muster stations. So identify muster points. So you may have multiple exit routes. Where do people gather? Protected spaces, which of the rooms are the safest spaces with windows or without windows, or the most secure places. If you had to hide, where would you choose to hide? Maybe you don't have too many of those, so identify which are the safest ones, and depending on where you are at the time, which one would you go to. This is useful. You can put on the wall. This is all pre-populated for you with things like where's safety and premises, ICT services, the educational psychology team, CSW resilience, all of that stuff you can use and put on your walls. Things are out of hours property services. If you subscribe, the numbers are all there for you. You've probably all got the lists of the individuals. You can do your own emergency sign here and adapt it. And we've done it on Word for you, so you can adapt it. So you can change that. Posters like this. And there's loads of stuff here, which I'm not going to go through in details. We've got 2 minutes left. Run, hide, tell. Okay, I'm going to skip through these quickly. It's all there for you. It's a brief video here. I'm not going to play it all. This is quite good for your staff training day. You get the idea. Again, locking windows, etc., and security in attack. Comms, a holding statement. Think about what you're going to say. Have it pre-planned and ready to go. So there's been an incident at X school. We are aware, or police have told us that there's been an incident, or we have identified an emergency, no electricity, whatever the reason is. We're taking action. As we told you, we're following our emergency plan. We will keep you updated when we can. Please do not come to the school, or please do come into the school, depending on what you want them to do. Please keep away from the site. We did have one lockdown, which was a genuine lockdown, where all the parents came to the site and stood in front of the gates where the actual risk was. So please, please, please tell them in advance not to come to the school. Okay, there's all your stuff to decide what you need. Drills and practices do include children with SEND or learning needs. We don't want them to be left out, but we don't want them overwhelmed either. So adapt them appropriately, but everybody needs to have the opportunity to be safe, and it's no good not preparing them for unpredictable things. You have a duty to include everybody and to manage it as best you can. So think about what they might need to make them feel safer, but also to stay safe and be with the group of people that need to evacuate. Really good video. So if you've ever done a hazard perception test for driving, there's a hazard perception test here if you sign up. So you only got to sign up. It's not signing your life away, but it goes round a school setting, and you have to look out for the risks, like an unattended office, an open door on the playground in the morning. So it just encouraging staff to be more aware. There's a lot of support for you should you ever need post-incident support. And we are coming right to the end. I know we're at 9 o'clock, so sorry if we're running over a fraction, but people tell me this video is well worth seeing. And we just got 2 slides left after this, I think. So very quickly, you can be filling in your forms if you've got time. Fill in your forms for me. I'm going to play this though for you. Just a couple of minutes. It's a bit of a trigger warning, but obviously you're not in this cafe. This is an scenario. Stay with us if you can. This is the sort of role that the security person would have in a school, but this is a cafe scenario. That might be warning other schools in your area. Okay, it's a really good video. It's got lots of scenarios, like the awkward person who's saying, "Why are you locking us in? You know, how dare you?" So there's some scenarios here thinking about young people that might be extreme, radicalized and may threaten in school. So scenario there if you want. That is it for today. Thank you ever so much. All of this information will be sent out to you. You'll get the bulletin, the slides. We might split the slides into 3 lots, 3 parts, so that we can email them. It might be too much. Please do give us some feedback. We really want some feedback about if you've been to these sessions, if you found this useful. You know, do please try and do that. It's not very long. I think there's 10 questions, just saying who you are, where you're from, and what your comments are. And if you've got anything else you'd like to see in the future, please let us know. We may see you again before the summer. There may be information to share with you, but we just want to say thanks for all your hard work, for doing what you do for the children. Thank you for attending today. And when you do get there, have a really good summer and have a good weekend when you get there as well. Okay, take care, everybody. Stay on if you want to. We're going to stop the recording.